Hi everybody, welcome along, and a great big welcome to Michelle Worthington, who will be joining us today. We'll be talking with Michelle about her books and her work and some tips that she has. So firstly, welcome.
Thank you.
I know that you've done some stuff at Braille House before. What was that you did?
So I've been involved in a couple of different things at Braille House. I was lucky enough to be a special guest at one of their readathon challenge days.
Nice.
So that was really great. So I got to see kids all through all the grades go through a couple of different challenges that they had to do, and they even tried to teach me how to read Braille, and I failed miserably. So the preps were like just speeding past me. So that was a really great experience just to see how clever the kids were. And then I've also worked with them to have a couple of my books translated to Braille, and worked with Narberthon State Special School as well in helping some of their visually impaired kids write their own book.
Yeah, right. And how did that come about? Like, is people with a visual impairment of particular interest, or did you just come across it somehow?
I guess I've worked a lot with school kids who don't necessarily get author visits. So there's a real need, I think, especially in Queensland being such a big state. It's not only do we have a lot of kids who are in little regional schools who never get a visit from a real author, and you go out there and you're treated like an absolute rock star, but also in our own backyard, I think there are a lot of kids with impairments who they just aren't on the radar. And I think as an author, that was one of the things that I really wanted to do. I have got a couple of friends whose kids go to special school, so I started off there, and then that's where I realised that I just had so much fun and the kids got so much out of it. So that's something that I wanted to keep doing more of.
Yeah, nice one. And how about your first book? How did that come about? How did you get into writing?
Gosh, so it took me 10 years to get my first book published. I had no idea what I was doing, and
Right.
I didn't know I could ask anyone for help. I didn't know there were places that you could go for help. And so I did it all by accident, and I did it all by mistake. So that's what I do now, is I help other people not make the same mistakes I did and have a bit of an easier pathway to getting their books published.
Yeah, right. And how are you doing that?
Oh, we have lots of different workshops that we do, so online workshops mainly now, not so many face-to-face. We have professional editors who can help them get their book submission ready, and we also have mentor programs so that we can actually help them individually if they want to find whatever pathway to publication that is. And we also have competitions where they can be published in an annual anthology and find out what it's like to be published.
Yeah, fantastic. We should probably also mention that it's the 99th birthday of the Dickinson Memorial Literary Award.
Yes, and I visited Charles Dickens' birthplace when I was in England, because he's born the same day as me.
Wow, okay.
We have the same birthday.
Yeah, wow. So you have quite a few books.
Yes.
How do you start a new book? Like, what's the because you have many books about different things. How do they usually start?
That's a really great question. So I'm inspired by people I meet. So sometimes it would be as simple as meeting a child. It could be my own kids. It could be my friends' kids. It could be kids I meet at school visits. And there's just something about them that triggers something in me. Or it could be that I'm at a place and something happens, or Hootie the Cutie was when we had an owl sitting on our front fence. So, of course, it was like, well, that owl wants to be in a book. So that's why he came to visit me. But mostly it's inspired by people I meet. So Noah Chases the Wind. Noah is a real person. Yellow Dress Day. Ava is a real person. Super Nicholas is a real person. And then it might just be people who inspire me who might not be in the book but have inspired me to think of a story.
And then how about the illustrators? How do you connect with them?
So the publishers actually choose the
Oh,
illustrators, and it's really interesting because when I work with some publishers, I don't even see the illustrations until the book is finished, and
wow.
it's so strange having someone else like interpret your story. And for example, with Glitch, it turned out totally different than how I imagined it in my head. Like, it's great and I love it, but that it was not how I pictured it in my head at all. So it's really strange not being someone who can even draw a stick figure, having someone else be able to kind of look at your words and be, I think they're absolute rock stars. Like, I could never do that. I think illustrators are amazing.
Well, you just mentioned Glitch, which is one of your latest books. Can you read us a little bit of it?
Oh, sure, of course. So Glitch was actually inspired, Glitch was actually inspired by my grandfather, who used to take us to the dump. Now, this is back in the days where you could bring back more from the dump than you would dump, and there wasn't any person there saying, you know, you couldn't take that suitcase, or, you know, why would someone throw away a perfectly good suitcase? And I can remember being 6 or 7 years old with no shoes on, and him going, can you climb up that side of the dump and grab that stuff and put it in the back of the ute and we'll take it home. So old school recycling was how, yeah. And this one was recently featured on Channel 9's Reading at Home program, because I really like using a lot of alliteration, and I'm really, I guess, conscious of how my books sound when they're read aloud, because I know that picture books, that's one of the main purpose is that we've got a teacher who's reading it aloud, and I want it to sound great. So I use a lot of alliteration in my book. So for example, he borrowed buttons, bottle tops and boxes. He collected cardboard, cling wrap and cellophane. He recycled ribbons, rubber bands and random rubbish. So I have a lot of fun playing with the words in my different stories.
Yeah, right. And what advice would you have? I mean, I know you do the author talks and information, but is there like one piece that you wish you knew at the beginning?
Yeah, actually there is. I wish I knew that this is something that is a marathon, not a sprint. So this is not something that you can just wake up in the morning and decide, I'm going to be a published author, and, you know, and somebody gets your manuscript and sends you a check for $1 million.
That would be nice.
It's really,
Yeah.
It would be so nice. And maybe I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what happens and I'm just doing it wrong. But I think you really have to love the industry, and you have to have a need to connect with an audience, because it is something that's addictive for a start. It's very hard just to write one book and then never do it again. But I think it's more about being in it for the long haul, and wanting to write stories that inspire kids to fall in love with books, and focus on that more than getting hugely well known and incredibly rich. Like, I'm still haven't given up hope that will happen one day, but I think being a little bit more realistic about the reasons for wanting to do it in the first place.
Yeah. And does it get easier?
Oh, absolutely. I think the more you make connections with people in the industry, and you learn a little bit more about what works and what doesn't work, and then they change the rules and you've got to figure it out all over again. But I think it's more about just embracing the resilience that comes with working in a creative industry, because it's so subjective, and what one person likes, another person may not like. So just loving your own story because you know that it means something to you.
Yeah, right. And well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been amazing. What's coming up for you?
So a few things are coming up. So I've just released another book called The Wind and the Mouse.
Nice.
And this is the first book that actually has an online animation that goes with it. So the kids can actually listen to the story on YouTube, and they can read along. So it's kind of my version of the old school Disney tape ones, where it used to go ding, 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 turn the page. So really excited that one's just come out. And then I've got another book coming out in September, which is my very first baby board book. So it's called Dino Love, and it's going to be one of the hard kind of suck-on cardboard board books. So it'd be exciting to have one of those to share as well.
Yeah, nice. And your books seem to be very Australian. Is that planned, or that's just what you
actually yeah, when I first decided to do this, my son, who's now 20, had just been born.
You don't look like you have a 20-year-old son, by the way.
The stress keeps me young. It's all the wrinkles on the inside. But I think I really did decide when he was young that a lot of the books that we were getting from the library and the bookshops, they were all based on TV shows, and they were quite American, and there really wasn't those books that we had growing up, like Wombat Stew and Possum Magic, and the uniquely Australian ones that we as kids immediately connected with. And it was ours because there's no other country in the world that's like ours, and growing up in Australia is very different than growing up anywhere else. So yeah, I really did consciously want to write Aussie stories for Aussie kids, but in saying that, the type of stories that I write are pretty universal in the theme, and everybody loves Aussie stories. So I think it worked out well.
So and just lastly, is there a way that how do people buy the book? Like, is it at your local bookstore? Can they get it online from you, or?
So I always recommend that people make friends with their local bookstore for lots of reasons. First of all, supporting local business is really great. And all you need to do is go in with my name and say, have you got any of Michelle Worthington's books? If they don't, they'll be able to order it in. If you don't have a local bookstore, then absolutely my books are available from all online bookstores and all major retailers like Amazon and Booktopia and Book Depository, or you can go to my website, michelleworthington.com, and if you can't get anything for any reason, just contact me and I'll be more than happy to help.
Excellent. And how can people find you?
michelleworthington.com is the easiest way, or you can find me on Facebook at Michelle Worthington Author.
Beautiful. Well, thanks again for joining us. And
thank you so much for having me.
Of Braille House and Bookshop 507 so we've started a secondhand bookshop, which is print books for sale, funding library books in Braille. So it kind of keeps that reading circle going. But thank you so much for your time today, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you. It's so important what you're doing. So thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thanks, Michelle. Have a good day. Bye.